All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, Carol.
Gant.
Here.
Lemoyne.
Here.
Diamond. Here. Vaughn. Here. Lindsay. Smith. Here. Nelson.
Here.
Lazenby. Here. McMillan.
Here.
All right, thank you, Carol. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dave, do you mind leading us here this evening, sir?
Father, we thank you for everything you give us, and we thank you for the privilege of living in this country, in this state, and in this city. Father, we thank you for each person on the Planning Commission that gives of their time and volunteers and serves, and the elected officials that serve this community. Father, we ask that you give them wisdom to make decisions that are right for this community. Father, we ask that you bless this community, bless the people that live here, and Father, we thank you for those people that protect the freedoms that we exercise here tonight around the whole world. And we ask that in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, David. All right, do we have a city council report, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Since our last meeting, the City Council has approved a few things. We have some new rules at Integrity Park. Essentially, I think we added a statement, no archery or shooting sports would be allowed. I think that was the significant change. And golf balls, that's right. You can't shoot nothing or hit nothing at nobody. No fun, no. No target practice, rather. So we approved a bid for disaster debris removal. Hopefully we won't have any of that with TFR Enterprise, Inc. We approved an agreement for water monitoring at the new splash pad over by the new pickleball courts that are coming soon. So that's exciting. We approved a contract with the VISO group for audits of the city and the CID's finances each year. We approved a grant for application for approved a grant application for the police department for some new equipment. And we're also currently interviewing candidates for a vacancy on the city council. It was position that was vacated by J.R. Smith, and also for a new city prosecutor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, we have a few
Mr. Chairman,
administrative items.
Add one quick thing, because we don't have a meeting prior to the next city events. By that, I'm talking about regular meeting. We've got our tree lighting coming up December the 8th at 6 o'clock here at the community center. We've got a parade the 14th at 6 o'clock at the Eastern Shore Center, and the book reading at 6 o'clock here at the community center, our book reading. So just want to oh yeah, and this coming Saturday, the Junior City Council is putting together their first little street fair. It'll be behind Belk's at the Eastern Shore Center. Starts at 9 o'clock through noon, I believe. So if you can, get a chance to go by there and support your junior council.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We have a few administrative items to get taken care of this evening for election of officers. David, do you want to take this, please, sir?
Mr. Chairman, it's time to elect your chairman and vice chairman of the Planning Commission. During the work session, there was discussion, and Mayor McMillan, I believe you made a nomination for Carl Nelson to be chairman. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right. Any other nominations for chairman? If there's no other nominations for chairman, then we'll call for the vote, Mr. Chairman. All those in favor of Carl Nelson being chairman of the Planning Commission, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
You'll be the chairman. If you want to take this next part, there was another nomination by the mayor, I believe, for the vice chairman to be Keith Vaughn. Is that correct, Mayor?
That is correct.
Any other nominations for vice chairman? If there are none, Mr. Chairman, you can call for the vote.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a new vice chair. We'll move along. We have some minutes to get approved. September 30th work session, October 14th work session, and October 14th regular session. Do we have any errors or changes need to be made? All right. Minutes stand approved as written. Let's see, we have some old business, agenda item 241001. This was for an application for site plan approval, but it has been postponed due to deficiencies, I believe. Correct, Casey?
Yes, our recommendation on this one would be to postpone action. They're still working on revisions and needed information for this site plan application. Before we move too far, though, I do want to go back to the 2025 submission deadline and meeting schedule. If nobody has any issues or comments on what's been proposed and attached in your packet, then we can get that one. I don't know that we've ever necessarily done a formal approval by the Planning Commission. It may not hurt to do that, but if everybody's good with it, we can go ahead and post that tomorrow so that we can start getting those out to applicants. That's really up to y'all, I guess. We've never formally done a motion on this. I don't know that it's needed, but that's.
Might as well. Just do a motion accepting to accept the calendar.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to accept the staff recommendation for the 2025 submission deadline meeting schedule.
All right, do we have a second? Second. All right, roll call, Carol?
Yes.
Lemoyne. Diamond. Vaughn. Smith.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Lazenby. McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved.
Mr. Chairman, if we may go back just for a second, kind of threw me off guard when we talked about nominations in the work session and the meeting. I led you wrong. We need to have a motion and a second to appoint the chairman as Carl Nelson. So if we could do that for the record, we need to have a motion to appoint Carl Nelson as chairman, and then a second, then a vote.
I'd like to make a motion, we appoint Carl Nelson as chairman for the Planning Commission for 2024-2025.
I'll second that.
I have a question. Is it a one-year term, or can we make it like emeritus? I mean, or
It should be one. It should be. It should be a one-year term, but
One-year
it
term,
serves
okay.
till his successor's appointed. So, but it's a one-year term. With that, then, Mr. Chairman, call for the vote with a motion and second.
All right. Excuse me?
For the vote, we have a motion and second on that.
Do we have a vote? Roll call, Carol?
Gant.
Yes.
Lemoyne.
yes.
Diamond.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Lazenby. McMillan.
Yes.
And then you should have a motion and a second to appoint Keith Vaughn as vice chairman.
We have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we appoint Keith Vaughn as vice chairman of Planning Commission for 2024-2025.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, Carol?
Gant.
Yes.
Yes.
Lemoyne. Diamond.
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Lazenby. McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. All right, we have some new business here, agenda item 241101, application for zoning change. We'll have a public hearing on this agenda item. If anybody's here for this, that wishes to speak on this agenda item, please come over here to Carol at the desk and print your name and address. I'll call on you, come up to the podium. Be sure and press the button on the microphone and state your name and address, and we'll be glad to hear from you. And that will be the same routine for each and every public hearing we have here this evening. All right, this is our rezoning from an R1 to a B3. The location is 10880 US Highway 31. The applicant is JJ&J LLC. Casey, your staff report, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this applicant is requesting a zoning change from the current R1 low-density single-family residential to B3 general business in order to utilize the undeveloped property for commercial use. The subject property was recently annexed into the corporate limits of the city of Spanish Fort and by default was annexed as R1. The property has no existing use at the time, although a majority of the surrounding properties inside the city limits in this area are currently non-conforming due to recent annexations. A commercial zoning at this property of either B2, B3, or M1 would allow for uses similar to those that currently exist in the immediate vicinity. The existing conditions within the vicinity of the subject property are typically general business and higher type uses. Due to existing uses in the surrounding area, the application is expected to have little to no impact on the area. The subject property was not identified on the comprehensive plan's future land use map because it was outside the corporate limits of the city of Spanish Fort at the time of the map's adoption. Staff has reviewed the submitted information regarding the application and has found the required documentation to be accounted for. Because the parcels directly surrounding the subject property are currently being utilized as either similar or more intense commercial uses, staff feels there is sufficient evidence in support of agreement to rezone the subject parcel to the requested B3 zoning. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council regarding Agenda Item 241101, application for zoning change from R1 to B3 for Lot 1 JJAJ subdivision.
All right, thank you, Casey. We'll open it up for discussion. All right, discussion is closed. We'll have a public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? All right, public hearing's closed. Any discussion? All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council regarding Agenda Item 241101.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call, Carol.
Gant,
Yes.
Lemoyne,
Yes.
Diamond,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Lassenby, McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. All right, agenda item 241102, application for land use has been withdrawn by the applicant. That was for a charging station. All right, we'll move along. We have agenda item 241103. This is application for minor subdivision plat approval. Once again, we'll have a public hearing on this agenda item. This is Malbus Triangle subdivision at Rockwell School Road and US Highway 31. The applicant is Sawgrass Consulting LLC on behalf of Malbus Plantation. Casey, your staff report, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this subject parcel is located between Rockwell School Drive and US 31, directly to the west of Rockwell Elementary School. The subdivision application proposes to subdivide the existing 5.69 acre lot into two resulting parcels, with the resulting Lot 1 being 2.24 acres and the resulting Lot 2 being 3.45 acres. Lot 1 would retain frontage on Rockwell School Road, and Lot 2 would retain frontage on Rockwell School Road and US Highway 31. The existing overall lot, as well as the resulting lots, are subject to a 150-foot Alabama power easement on the westernmost side of the property. The staff has reviewed the information as submitted regarding the application and has found all required documentation to be accounted for and in compliance with applicable ordinances and regulations. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve Agenda Item 241103, application for minor subdivision plat approval for Malbus Triangle subdivision.
All right, thank you, Casey. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Excuse me, any discussion?
I do just want to be clear. My concern would be about, I guess, this is Lot 2 down here, right? So I'm just real skeptical about another curb cut over here. That's not what we're discussing, obviously, but as far as this one being landlocked, you said earlier, I think in the work session, that Alabama Power would allow a road down here. Is that what you're saying? So, and that would be our guarantee, or that's what would give us comfort that it wouldn't be landlocked. Is that right?
Right, so I did have a discussion with the surveyor on the project who submitted the application. Alabama Power does allow improvements as long as they are not vertical improvements within their power line easements. So they could still potentially put, driveway accesses up here, or even down here to the western side of this lot. There is an existing culvert crossing right here, and there is, I forget the exact footage between the edge of the easement and the edge of the property, but I believe there's actually about 30 feet outside of that easement, which would be enough for a driveway access there if needed if it had to stay outside of that easement. But as I mentioned, from what I understand, Alabama Power has no issue granting access under their power lines.
And we've seen Alabama Power provide applicants the ability to make improvements under their power line easements in other cases. The most recent one being the go-kart track. If you remember, there was a power line easement on the back of that property, and they allowed the parking lot and improvements to extend over into that easement.
I got a question, Mr. Connor. When we had conversations with Alabama Power about connecting from Old 31 to Eastern Shore Boulevard, didn't they have an issue of cutting that road straight through where their easement is? There's no building, but remember we're talking about cutting a road through there? What's the difference?
I'm trying to remember that particular instance.
You know what I'm speaking of, right?
Yeah,
Instead of where we've been talking with the county about perhaps a new road, taking Old 31 and extending it straight out because that goes underneath the Alabama Power.
I remember there being some objections to that. I just don't remember exactly what the objections were.
I mean, I'm all for it if they'll allow it, because I'd like to cut that road. That'd be a lot easier than doing what we're planning on doing.
Oh, yeah. What Casey mentioned to you, though, here's the outside of the power line easement. He thinks there's 30 feet here. So even if they required them to build them outside, they've still got enough room for ingress and egress to get here, to get into the property. And if the owner was going to do it, you'd probably want to do some type of shared driveway across this area here. So there's plenty of room to make it happen, I believe, Casey, don't you? Even if they had to stay outside of it right of way. But I do remember, Mayor, what you're saying, that they did object certainly to a road running the whole length of the right of way. And whether they have a difference between a public road versus a private access, I don't know. They may have a different thought about that.
Just for future reference.
I guess regarding this one though, too, if this is subdivided and there's two lots there, they could sell this one to a separate owner right now. Is there any requirement that they go ahead and improve that and build a shared driveway or anything? Or is that just
Yeah, there's no requirement that they build a shared driveway. I'm just saying it would make a lot of sense if these two owned it together. But according to Casey, this is wide enough right here for them to build their own driveway access even outside of the easement area. And they've got enough space here with 30 feet to do their own.
Did I hear correctly that it is possible that that they could potentially get a curb cut out here or no on the western side of this? Did you say that, Casey, or did I misunderstand you?
No, from what I understood, as far as Alabama Power is concerned, they wouldn't have an issue. From what they've told me, they wouldn't have an issue with that curb cut there. Now, the placement and the approval is obviously up to ALDOT, so that's going to be based on proximity to the adjacent curb cuts with the school to the east and then the commercial developments to the west. So I can't say for sure whether they would be allowed to put one there or not, but as far as Alabama Power is concerned, that apparently should not be an issue.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll have our public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send a positive recommendation to the City Council for Agenda Item 241103, application for minor subdivision plat approval.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, this will be a motion to approve the subdivision. You all do that. There's no recommendation to the council on this one.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I was looking, gotcha.
All right, do we have a second?
second?
She needs to just make that a motion to approve the subdivision, if you don't mind.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Roll call, Carol, please.
Gant,
Yes.
Lemoyne,
Yes.
Diamond, Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Lazenby, McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. All right, we have Agenda item 241104, this is a regulation review. We'll have a public hearing on this agenda item. This is amending ordinance number 51-96, Article 11, Section 11.11, the revisionary clause. David, you want to bring this, take this one?
Mr. Chairman, this is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance, Section 11.11, the reversionary clause. The reversionary clause as presently drafted states that if a property is rezoned from its present zoning and it's not used for the purpose in the zoning of the zoning and the zoning classification, and actually used for permitted use in the zoning classification for which it's rezoned, it reverts back to the previous zoning after 12 months. It does allow for the applicant to ask for an additional 12-month extension, but again, after that 12-month extension, if the property is not used for a use within that new zoning classification, then it reverts back to the original zoning. In certain classifications, such as business classifications, that can be problematic as the property owner may be developing all or portions of the property for sale. But there are other areas where the City Council and Commission have had concerns about rezonings. For example, rezoning for multifamily or other high-density uses that don't come to fruition within 2, 5, sometimes even 6 to 10 years. And then the circumstances or zoning or use around that property is now changed, and you may or may not want that development to occur at that point in time under those circumstances. So what this would do is revise the reversionary clause to apply only to rezonings to R3A, R3B, R3C, and R3D, which are your higher density residential areas, R4, which is mobile home parks, B4, which is the large retail and big box type zoning, and B5, which is hotel and motel, and then M1 industrial districts, and T1 is telecommunications districts. R1 single-family residential, R2 single-family residential, B1, B2, and B3, which is your general business district, would not be subject to the reversionary clause if this amendment's approved. And so if you decide to go forward, this would be a recommendation to the City Council to consider amending the zoning ordinance.
All right, thank you, David. Any discussion? All right, we'll have our public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? All right, public hearing's closed. Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend a positive recommendation to the City Council on agenda item 241104, amending the ordinance 51-96 to add that reversionary clause.
All right, do we have a second? I'll second. All right, any discussion on the motion? All right, roll call, Carol, please.
Gant,
Yes.
Lemoyne,
Yes.
Damon, Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Lazenby, McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. All right, we have agenda item 241105. This is also regulation review, and we'll have a public hearing on this agenda item. This is amending section 6.4, table of permitted uses and conditions of ordinance number 51-96, adding uses related to storage shed sales and display in the B3, B4, and M1 zoning districts, and amending ordinance number 51-96, adding section 7.13, restrictions on storage shed sales and display of storage sheds, establishing standards and regulations pertaining to the sale and display of storage sheds. David?
Mr. Chairman, this is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance that would allow storage shed sales and display of storage sheds in the corporate limits of the city. Presently, there's nothing in the table of permitted uses that clearly allows that use, and so section 7.13 would create restrictions on those sales, including a maximum number of sheds that would be allowed, minimum lot size requirements, and frontage on a public street. Half-acre minimum lot size, 120 feet frontage. Would also require that there be setbacks of 40 feet from all property lines. They would be required to have at least 2 driveways, but they'd have spacing that would be required spacing between those driveways. Also, loading and unloading of any storage sheds and buildings would be required to be off the right-of-way. It also has buffering requirements that are for inconsistent or neighboring properties. Attached as Exhibit A would be an amendment to the table of permitted uses that would allow for storage shed sales and display of storage sheds and/or models in compliance with the newly created Section 7.13 if this is approved, and it would allow storage shed sales and display in B3 and B4 zoning districts with Planning Commission approval and in the M1 Industrial District by right. And this would be a recommendation to the City Council.
All right, thank you, David. Any discussion? All right, we'll have a public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? Excuse, I don't, okay, you want to, this is on the ordinance amendment? Yeah, okay. This is
Point of clarification, I mean, we all know that Home Depot and Lowe's
That's actually Daphne.
oh, excuse me, we'll address any questions after the public hearing. All right, anybody else wish to speak? All right, public hearing's closed. We'll open it up for discussion. Keith?
Yeah, I think,
Cap?
David, you might want to answer that, but I think he's speaking of Daphne, and when it's Lowe's and Home Depot, it doesn't really affect us, does it?
Yeah, in the large package retail outlet stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, they usually have a section of this that's kind of out in the parking lot. We don't have that type of store here in the city, so we've never created that use. And even if we were to have one of those stores that were to come, they wouldn't be allowed to do that display unless we created this category that allowed it. And so this also would create the opportunity potentially for that to happen. But more importantly, we had some people approach us regarding outdoor storage sales that they wanted to place on premises not associated with hardware stores.
Just for the benefit of anybody listening, you know, this is just evidence again of us being a young city. We don't necessarily have everything in print that defines who can do what where, and so in an effort to define that, that's what this is. We anticipate we might have that coming to us, so we want to make sure we're prepared.
All right, any other discussion? All right, discussion is closed. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion recommendation to City Council for agenda item 241105 to add that table 6.2, table permitted uses 6.4, to add that 7.13, the restrictions on storage sheds.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, Carol, please.
Gant,
Yes.
Lemoyne,
Yes.
Diamond, Vaughn,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Lazenby, McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. All right, we have agenda item 241106. This is a request for an extension for a preliminary subdivision plat. We'll have a public hearing on this agenda item, and this is Churchill Phase 5. The location is Churchill Subdivision. The applicant is Dewberry on behalf of D.R. Horton, Inc., Huntsville. Casey, your staff report, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this applicant has requested an extension of the previously approved preliminary subdivision plat for Churchill Phase 5. The original plat, as approved, proposes to subdivide 19.83 acres located to the west of Churchill Phase 3 into 59 lots, averaging approximately 15,648 square feet, and construct 3,450 linear feet of roadway with a right-of-way of 50 feet to be dedicated for public maintenance. The current preliminary subdivision plat for Phase 5 of Churchill was approved by the Spanish Fork Planning Commission on November 14th of 2022, and as such will expire on November 14th of 2024. Staff has been in contact with the engineer/contractor and performed inspections on site and can confirm that forward progress is being made or is continuing to be made at this time. Pending further comments from the Planning Commission regarding the status of the plat, staff recommends the Planning Commission grant the extension as requested of the approved preliminary subdivision plat for Churchill Phase 5, agenda item 241106.
All right, thank you, Casey. Do we have any discussion? All right, we'll have a public hearing. Anybody, this is Mr. Jackson?
Bregan Jackson, 11660 Thistledown Loop, new neighbor to the development in question here. Just bought across the street, so I knew what I was getting into. It is what it is. There's no doubt that completion is in the public's best interest, so not here to fight that. But there's a reason that we have deadlines, 24 months, it sounds to be in this case. And so the question that I would have for the group and would love to hear discussion on, well, first, the 24-month extension ostensibly exists to, for several reasons, but primarily to minimize disruption to neighboring properties, specifically damaged roads, soil deposits, aggregation and staining, and neighboring drives and roads, and noise pollution. There's been several instances of workers arriving on site 6:30 a.m., blaring music, waking people up. You can't deal with construction noise. That happens throughout the day. It is what it is. And so the question that I think we should ask ourselves at this point is, what were the reasons for the delays? What can we expect for completion if an extension is granted, and what does the committee give up if an extension is granted, in terms of gumption for getting the project done at this point. So that's my piece.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else wish to speak? All right, public hearing's closed. We'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, the purpose for the 24 months is like the gentleman said, is so that we don't have continuous construction that's going on. In the event that for some reason projects can't be completed within a period of time, it gives the right for an extension up to 24 months. I think it can be less than 24 months. Casey is looking at that. For example, if someone had been given 24 months to construct it, and they had not done anything at all to begin construction, and then they come to us asking for an extension, you all might be inclined to give that extension if the development plan made sense and there were no real objections before. But let's say within that 24 months they had done no work, nothing had been advanced, and you had also changed your subdivision regulations to have more stringent requirements. You might not extend that. You might make them come back in and meet the more stringent requirements. In this case, listening to Casey, it sounds like they're pretty far along. That just didn't get completed within the 24 months. So certainly this is one that you ought to consider for extension. But as the gentleman correctly noted, the idea is to have a beginning and an end so that it doesn't go on forever. If there are changes in the regulations, you might decide, hey, depending on how this thing is proceeded, whether or not to grant the extension or not, because they are operating under the subdivision regulations in place at the time the plat was approved. And I think if the language reads, it'll probably say it can be granted for up to 24 months. So you don't have to give 24 months. You can give 12 months. You give something less than that, depending on what staff's recommendation is as well.
All right. Casey, they didn't ask for a time frame?
No, their letter doesn't mention.
Wanted a full 24 months, is that?
They're just requesting an extension. As I mentioned, I believe, based on conversations that I've had with them, they do intend to submit for final plat approval within the next 2 to 3 months. So I wouldn't imagine it taking, even 6 months to a year, depending on, unknown circumstances. But they didn't request a specific amount of time.
All right. Go ahead, David.
As far along as it is, it sounds like 12 months would be a gracious amount of time to get it completed, but that's up to you all.
All right, we'll open it up for discussion.
I would think that, if they don't need 24 months and we think, in our opinion, they can do it in 12 months, I think we ought to look at that pretty hard, just my opinion.
There's a few things here. I also agree. I don't think we need to give them 24 months. It sounds like it's in their best interest to get this finished and completed so they can start selling what they have back there. So I think 1 year would be more than adequate. There's also some other things. Of course, the builder will be required to clean up the streets or any of those kind of things that they create back there. The noise ordinance that you brought up, Mr. Jackson, if they're ever there before 7 o'clock making noise, you need to call the police because we have a noise ordinance against that, okay? So just let the police know and they'll take care of that.
I'll just say, too, there was a lot of discussion about this during the work session that wasn't broadcast, so for anybody that's watching at home, this has nothing to do with lot sizes, the number of lots, or any altering of what's already been approved previously. It's simply an extension of time that they've requested.
David, just real quick, other municipalities, how do they handle this? I mean, I could see in some situations where maybe there's a late, fees involved or compensation for not meeting deadlines in certain projects. I mean, that would have to be in contracts, right? That's not really something we could.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody charges necessarily additional money for funds for doing an extension because remember all the cost has already been borne, the review costs have been done. The only thing that's really being delayed at this point in time would be the final inspections to do the work out. And it really is judged on a case-by-case basis. The reasons can be, it sounds like they just missed it maybe as short as 90 to 120 days getting done based on what we're talking about here. For example, there's certain years where you can, developers can lose contractors and construction workers for 60 to 120 days because a hurricane hits. And so they get to the end, the hurricane hits in August, and all of a sudden you messed up. So it's really a case-by-case analysis. Does the subregs give you the authority to extend it for up to 24 months? I don't know that you should always grant 24 months unless they got a really good reason for something. Here, they're close, but they're just not quite there.
I think I know some projects that could have used a little bit of more control, maybe even this building, as far as time frames and getting some penalties paid and different things.
Now, now that's two different things. For example, when the city's doing contracts or we're doing work, we have liquidated damages provisions, we have timelines, those kind of things. But those are private contracts between developers and property owners and those kind of things. So we do put limitations on when it can be done, and it gives us the authority to grant extensions or keep that in. And so you always want to keep it on a tight time frame, otherwise things can languish. In this case, we don't have any indication that they're not going to complete in a time frame. I remember several years ago with the county, we had several subdivisions that in 2008, 2010 had gotten approved. They got 30, 40, 50% done. Economy took a downturn, developers went bankrupt, and nothing went forward, so all of those lapsed. And they had to come back in and meet the new standards when they came back. So it just depends on the circumstances.
Just a quick clarification for the audience and the folks that live in the area. If, let's say we do 12 months and they still don't complete it, can they come back for another one, or there is not a
Again, it's a circumstance. It says up to 24 months, so in theory, you could come back and grant another extension, but if they can't get it done in 12 months, that's going to be a lot based on what we've heard. So,
How did the county protect themselves when subdivisions got halfway done and say they left a big dirt pit that's washing all over some neighbors' yards and they went bankrupt and left? I'm just interested how the county protected itself.
performance bonds that are in place for the maintenance portion of the roads and rights of ways that were submitted when completed. The ones that were not completed, they're still required to do BMPs, maintain, so you would either go after the landowner or the developer. They're one of the same, there's things there. So there's ways to enforce those, but the ones I was talking about was where they, like you said, they did some land clearing, they began to get started. They maybe even put some roads in and then stopped. And so they stayed out there for a while. They were closed off, nobody could access them, use them. They weren't having any negative environmental effects. When the economy came back, some developer came and bought it, and then they had to come in and either build it as it was approved, but if the subdivision regulations had changed in the interim, they were required to come to the higher standard. And so that's the risk that's involved. If you don't complete within the 24 months or with the extension, then you may have to meet some higher regs. So the pressure is always to get it done as quickly as possible because there's nobody making any money. They've outlaid money, but they can't make any money until they sell lots. So they're always wanting it to happen. It's usually something that's catastrophic if it just ultimately doesn't get completed. Again, a huge downturn in the economy, hurricanes, tornadoes, something that's unbeknownst to them. that stops it. More likely than not, they hit that 24 months or shortly thereafter.
All right, any other discussion? All right, we have, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request for extension to 41106 on the preliminary plat, subdivision plat of Churchill Phase 5, and that we restrict it to 12 months.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, just a clarification. Did I hear correctly, is the request for 24 months? So we need to,
The request is for
Denied.
20, the request is for 24 months. She made a motion to grant for 12.
No, I believe the request was to extend it. They didn't say 24 months.
There was no date specified in the request. It was simply just an extension request so that their plat doesn't expire. So that they've given no indication on whether there's a preference for the number of months or.
yes, I guess technically, are we,
In this case, you don't have to deny their request.
okay, that's what I'm curious
Yeah,
about.
we can,
Okay.
you can make a motion to approve what you're willing to give them. They've asked,
Okay.
it's in your discretion on that one. And so, unlike some other things that we have to do, in this case, they've asked for 24. You've had a public hearing, you've
Okay.
listened to it, and you've made a motion to give them 12. So, in other instances, you're right, we would deny that request and then take action.
Thank you.
All right, roll call, Carol.
Gant,
Yes.
Lemoyne,
Yes.
Diamond. Yes. Vaughn. Yes. Smith,
Yes.
Yes.
Lazenby, McMillan.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. All right, we now come to our public participation part of our meeting. Anybody here wish to speak to the commission? Anybody else? All right, we have a few announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission will be held Monday, December 9th, 2024. A work session will begin at 6 p.m. in the multipurpose room of the Spanish Fork Community Center, followed by the regular meeting at 6:30. The next informal work session of the Planning Commission will be held Monday, December 30th at 6 p.m. The submission deadline for the December regular meeting agenda is Wednesday, November 13th at 12 noon. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Meeting's adjourned.